Welcome and thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this video, it means you've invested in the HTMA or you are interested in what it shows. HTMA is a hair tissue mineral analysis. I offer this test and I want you to feel genuinely prepared before we sit down together to go through your results. Or if you are considering doing the test, you'll know what it will be showing. If you don't know me, my name is Tess. I'm a registered nurse and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and HTMA is one of my favorite tools because of how much information it really gives and how clearly it can explain things that felt maybe unexplainable before. So this video is the first in a two-part series, and in this one we're going to cover the foundations, what HTMA actually measures, and a deep dive into the individual minerals and ratios. And in the second video, we'll go into some stress patterns, heavy metals, and your dietary guidance that comes up on the HTMA. Again, hair tissue mineral analysis is what HTMA stands for, and it's a laboratory test that measures the mineral content stored in your hair, and those mineral levels reveal what's been happening inside your body over the past 2 to 3 months. So hair is a really unique medium for this kind of testing because as your hair grows, it's nourished by the bloodstream. And as the hair shaft forms, it absorbs and locks in the minerals and the heavy metals that are circulating and being deposited in your body's tissues at that particular time. So unlike a blood test, which shows you a single snapshot in time of what your bloodstream is doing, perhaps that morning that you go for your draw, HTMA gives you a longer story. It reflects your actual tissue storage levels over months, which is where your real nutritional status lives. The lab that I use is Trace Elements. It's known as TEI, and it's one of the world's leading hair analysis laboratories. It processes tens of thousands of samples each year, and their methodology and reference ranges are built on decades of clinical research. So it really is the best lab to use. So HTMA versus blood tests. Understanding this will help you make sense of what your HTMA might tell you as a different story than your blood work. Blood tests are tightly regulated by the body. Your blood is a transport system, and so your body works very hard to keep blood mineral levels within a narrow range, even when your actual tissue stores may be depleted. So they're not going to necessarily match up. That means deficiencies often don't show up in the blood until they're quite severe, and blood reflects what was happening perhaps that morning when you go, which can be influenced by what you ate, how you hydrated, and whether you were stressed being there. So urine tests, on the other hand, show what your body is excreting, not what it has absorbed or retained. So HTMA cuts through all of that, and it shows what has actually been absorbed and deposited in your body's tissues over an extended period. It's also the only test that evaluates mineral ratios, the relationship between minerals, which is where some of the most important clinical information really lives. So you can think of blood and urine tests as photographs, and HTMA is the documentary. Both have value, but only one tells the full story of what's really going on beneath the surface. So we're looking at a longer period of time with hair and tissue and a shorter period of time with blood. Now, as far as heavy metals are concerned, heavy metals rapidly clear from your blood to hide in the organs. You're not really going to see them in a blood test. So blood is what you're transporting today. HTMA is what your body has built and stored over a season. The 4 core minerals that we really look at, and then we'll talk about ratios, is calcium, which is going to be Ca on your test. And this looks at nerve, muscle, and metabolic rate regulation. And then magnesium, which is Mg, energy production and ultimate stress buffer. Sodium, which is Na. You might remember all this from chemistry class. Adrenal vitality and cellular energy pump. And then potassium, which is K, which we look at for thyroid activity and cell membrane health. I want to touch on all 4 really quickly. Calcium is really about the structure of the cell. It controls nervous systems, activity. And under chronic stress, the body raises tissue calcium as a protective mechanism. So your calcium may be elevated because of some sort of stress, either mental and emotional or physical stress going on. When we're in the exhaustion phase of stress, calcium deposits in soft tissue and it forms a calcium shell, blocking nutrient exchange. So this can be linked to emotional numbness and just feeling stuck. And then low tissue calcium is we usually see in the alarm phase of stress. And this is accelerated loss through stress associated with a hyper nervous system, cramping, maybe even poor sleep. Magnesium, we can look at as the stress buffer. And when it's high, often indicates rapid loss through the hair. And then when it's low, we're looking at probably extreme depletion. But either way, people are usually deficient in magnesium in some way. When you're really low, it could be linked to anxiety, poor sleep, and poor blood sugar instability. And then with sodium, this can be looked at as the adrenal marker, not a reflection of salt intake, okay, not with tissues. So when it is high, we usually see the alarm stage of stress, and adrenals are actively retaining sodium. We usually see high cortisol and difficulty winding down. And when sodium is low, this is usually the exhaustion stage of stress. We see fatigue, dizziness, low blood sugar. And then potassium, we like to call the cellular gateway because it really sensitizes your cells to thyroid hormone. In other words, your thyroid levels may look completely normal on a standard blood draw, and you may actually be maybe subclinical, which it's lower than what we're seeing in the blood, but not optimal. When potassium is high, we usually see rapid cell breakdown, and this will be seen with high cortisol. When potassium is low, we're usually looking at the exhaustion phase of stress, and this is the clearest signal of adrenal exhaustion. And we'll discuss this more with your results, but this causes profound fatigue, maybe cold intolerance, and impaired cellular energy production. Next, I just want to touch on copper. This is really an overlooked catalyst, and it's rarely assessed on standard blood panels. Copper is one of the most clinically significant and misunderstood minerals on the HTMA report. So there's a lot of things that go on with copper levels, your energy production, your neurotransmitter synthesis, so it has a lot to do with your mood, connective tissue, so collagen loss, your iron regulation, because it mobilizes stored iron, detoxification pathways, it's really critical to that, and then hormone balance as well. There is an estrogen connection with copper. The copper paradox, when we have high levels, this usually means the body is storing copper somewhere and just cannot use it. It's usually in like adipose tissue, that's fat cells in the body. It must bind to a protein to become active in the body. So if it's not, the copper will be stored somewhere else. So what happens is the copper will enter the body. There will be a missing piece, so it doesn't bind. And then we get toxic accumulation, and it usually happens more in the brain and the liver. So when we have biounavailable copper, this acts as a toxin in the body. It causes things like racing thoughts, perhaps severe PMS and estrogen dominance, at postpartum depression, maybe fatigue, even when you're getting enough sleep. The solution really isn't about avoiding copper, though. It's supporting the binding pathways, which is discussed at the time of results. So the web of ratios, single numbers of minerals is not really the way to address the depletion, because it's really the way that the minerals are working with one another. So what we look at is ratios. The most powerful insights on your report doesn't come from the mineral levels individually. It comes from the dynamic relationship between them together. And that is what ratios are. So when we talk about relationships, we're looking at calcium magnesium ratio. This is looking at nerve excitability versus calming, right? So when we have an imbalance, a high ratio may indicate calcium dominance. So we will end up seeing sluggishness and emotional withdrawal. And then a low ratio may indicate fast oxidation or stress depleted calcium. Probably have high stress levels and lower calcium levels. With the sodium to potassium ratio, the focus here is really the vitality of adrenal health and kidney stress. Elevated levels may be adrenal hyperactivity, so it might be overstimulated and really high drive. Severely depleted might indicate profound burnout and poor stress recovery on the body. And then when we're looking at calcium to potassium ratio, the focus there is thyroid health. And so when we see imbalances here, elevation could mean sluggish thyroid activity despite normal thyroid hormone in the blood. And then when we have depleted ratios, this could be in hyperactive thyroid. When we're looking at sodium to magnesium ratio, the focus here is adrenal output and cellular energy. And then the imbalance, when we have an elevation, it could mean burning through reserves because of very high stress levels. And a depleted ratio means adrenal insufficiency. So it's slower, and cellular fatigue even after rest. So we're really tired out. Your mineral ecosystem is really a closed loop. When you're pulling on one thread of this, it's really moving the entire web. This is why isolated supplementation fails. If you're just taking calcium or something like that, we really want everything balanced together. Your ratios combine to reveal your overarching metabolic type. So we look at your metabolic type, how quickly or slowly your cells are burning the fuel in your body. This really dictates exactly which foods and supplements are really going to help you to have optimal health, and which is going to crash your system more. So a supplement that heals a slow oxidizer may not be the same for someone else, and it will actually worsen that person. And so when we're looking at the spectrum of metabolic health, these are some of the results that might fall into those categories. But when we talk about the nervous system, the sympathetic dominant or the parasympathetic dominant, that means you're either in fight or flight and your body is trying to get to a parasympathetic state, which is where we will rest and digest. So it really is dependent on the person. That's what the sympathetic versus parasympathetic dominance really is looking at. Are you in fight or flight? And do you need to come into a more restful state, which is parasympathetic? Or are you in parasympathetic? You're kind of in freeze mode and you can't move out of that. And when we talk about a symptom profile, for someone that's in a fast oxidation, you're wired but maybe tired. You may be anxious. Your blood sugar's crashing. You're highly irritable. Those are fast oxidizers. For slow oxidizers, you may be more sluggish, profound fatigue. You're really tired. You've got some brain fog going on, cold intolerance, weight gain. And some are like a combination of the two. So your dietary needs really is dependent on whether you're a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer. So we're going to talk about that in the next video. But the path forward for all of this is really your dress framework. And these are your lifestyle modifications that you're going to make in addition to possibly supplementing minerals, but in a way that it's going to look at the ratios, because minerals don't work in isolation. You really have to make changes in each area, but you got to meet yourself where you are. So that's why I develop a customized protocol, and it targets the whole system. So your body really has a blueprint. So we've got to map it out. We've got to walk through the complete mineral profile together. And the goal here is to understand the unique story your body is telling you and to really build a protocol that works with your biochemistry and not against it. We'll see you in the next video.